Oh, come in, let me open this up for you. Hi, come in. Come on, have a seat. Nice to see you. All the new arrangements. I've got my clerical robes hanging on the back of the door now. There's nowhere else to put them. Well, lovely to see you again. I'm just settling down with a nice pint and a pipe. In fact, one might almost think best of British and American. This is Hobgoblin, which is a wonderful real ale from the southwest. But you were asking me the other day about what I smoke. I mean, it's mainly aromatics, but I'm just enjoying the last of this. This is wonderful. Look at this lovely label. McClelland's Bombay Extra, an Oriental mix. Latakia, Perique. I brought it back from the States. There's hardly any left. Maybe 2 or 3 bowlfuls. And of course they've gone out of business now, so you can't get their tobaccos for love nor money. But it's a very nice evening smoke. I wouldn't attempt it in the morning. Anyway, one of the happinesses of the new arrangement of having had to pack all the books and then reshelve them is that you sort of rediscover them. So I must show you, the other day I came across this, which I hadn't seen for ages. It's a little Aldine paperback which Dent produced. This one was in 1963. Dylan Thomas Miscellany. And you forget just how good Dylan Thomas is. So I thought we might enjoy a couple of his poems, which, in my mind at least, are related. In my mind, the one kind of answers the other. They're both beautiful. They both deal with difficult things. They both deal with mortality. But they also sustain you with the sheer force and beauty of their language, and perhaps even more of their metaphor. Anyway, the first one I want to read you takes its title just from its astonishing opening line. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. That's a poem in itself. I mean, it's what you might call, and this is, Dylan Thomas is a master of this, it's the embedded metaphor. It's not even set up, or it's an analogy. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. Suddenly you see a flower in a completely new way. The stalk becomes the fuse, and its whole growth of force. And of course, green fuse and force, you almost expect kind of explosion at the end of it. So the flower itself becomes this kind of explosion of light and colour coming out of the green fuse. And of course, that gives added force in a sense, because you think of a flower as very fragile, and he sees it as the expression of this great force of nature. But equally, doesn't it sort of also radically make you rethink what we do with fuses and force? And I always think, it's an image that came far long after Dylan Thomas wrote the poem. But those moments in protest, there's an iconic photograph, isn't there, of a sort of girl putting a flower down the barrel of the gun of a soldier. So there's something remarkable going on in this poem. But you'll see the other themes. Let me not spoil the poem too much by saying anything, but let me just read you. It's 4 or 5 line stanzas with amazing half rhymes and then a couplet. So here we go. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower drives my green age, that blasts the roots of trees, is my destroyer. And I am dumb to tell the crooked rose my youth is bent by the same wintry fever. The force that drives the water through the rocks drives my red blood, that dries the mouthing streams turns mine to wax. And I am dumb to mouth unto my veins how at the mountain's spring the same mouth sucks. The hand that whirls the water in the pool stirs the quicksand that rapes the blowing wind, hauls my shroud sail, And I am dumb to tell the hanging man how of my clay is made the hangman's lime. The lips of time leach to the fountainhead. Love drips and gathers, but the fallen blood shall calm her sores. And I am dumb to tell a weather's wind how time has ticked a heaven round the stars. And I am dumb to tell the lover's tomb how at my sheet goes the same crooked worm. So, astonishing poem. You've got all this force of life and nature and the springing water, and at the same time and in the same place and by the same processes, you have death. You have things, the bent rose. You have the wintry fever. You have in the end the lover's tomb, and the crooked worm. And he gives kind of equal weight to both and sees the length. In a way, it's playing a variation on the same paradoxes, in something like Sonnet 19 in Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Oh, George, let's just see if we can. George, can we have a little less fuss down there? Shush. He may probably come upstairs. It's forbidden, but there you go. So Shakespeare has this thing that says, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Then he comes up with the way the very nature that's beautiful is also a kind of destroyer. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. And then he interposes this notion of the eternal, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. Just at the moment when love or intensive experiences makes us kind of lean towards eternity, we're most aware of time. So it's astonishing. And there are these... the other thing that's going on in it is saying, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower drives my green age. I love that phrase, green age. I think of myself as a green age. But I recognise that there is, all the distinctions in life and species and all the rest of it, but there is one life in us. In fact, I've got somewhere a collection of essays on ecology, which is simply called The Green Fuse. Both with the sense of, that there's a fuse burning, we need to do something about the environment, but also quoting this poem, because it's about our oneness with nature. But it's also about mortality. And it's about how love itself becomes more intense in the context of mortality. Love drips and gathers, and it speaks of the fallen blood shall calm her souls. And then, of course, the great paradox of the poem is he keeps on saying, I've got so much to tell you, but I can't tell it to you. I am dumb. He says it 5 times in this poem. I am dumb to tell the crooked rose. Well, this is pretty eloquent and loquacious dumbness. Dumb, I think, was something, in a way, that Dylan Thomas never was. I mean, he had this great flow of language. But it's still right for him to say this, because every poet knows when they're writing at their greatest intensity that they're also pushing language to its limits, and there is always something more and beyond to say. It's like Tennyson saying, so runs my dream, but what am I? An infant crying in the night, an infant crying for the light, and with no language but a cry. So it's astonishing, and it somehow takes you to the head of the fountain, it takes you up the mountain, it makes you look at the stars, this wonderful idea that you see the stars as a sense of the eternal, and yet your human clock-bound, clock-face world is ticking time around the stars. Astonishing. Now, I said I wanted to look at another poem with you, and which is another very famous poem of his, and it's the only poem that I think, I'll be careful here, but he's not an explicitly religious poet in any sense, though I think he deals with the deepest things with which religion and spirituality are concerned, as we can see in that former poem. But here is one where he quite explicitly quotes the Bible, and it's even in that very title, and death shall have no dominion. The triumphant moment, here it is. I was just, here's another. I've got various Bibles, but this one came up as well in the kind of packing and unpacking. It's a beautiful King James version, bound in leather, printed in Cambridge. It says, presented to Rev Malcolm Guite from St John's Church of England Primary School, July 1998, with many thanks for all your assemblies. That was me. It's the local vicar doing assemblies. But let's just remind ourselves, you'll know this, but Romans chapter 6. It's verse 9, of course, but let me just read you 8 as well, addressing this very question of our mortality and the promise of resurrection. So from 8, Romans chapter 6, verse 8. Now if we be dead with Christ, we believe we shall also live with him, knowing that Christ, being raised from the dead, dieth no more. Death hath no more dominion over him. Now let's see what Dylan Thomas does with that. My goodness. One of the great poems. I think it's been used quite a lot in films and things like that. It is one of the great poems of the 20th century. And death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not. And death shall have no dominion. And death shall have no dominion under the windings of the sea. They lying long shall not die windily, twisting on racks when sinews give way, strapped to a wheel, yet they shall not break. Faith in their hands shall snap in two, and the unicorn evils run them through. Split all ends up they shan't crack, and death shall have no dominion, and death shall have no dominion. No more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashores. Where blew a flower, may a flower no more lift its head to the blows of the rain. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies, break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion. There's so much going on there. The bit about the unicorns, of course, is riffing on Psalm 22 about, among the horns of the unicorns is a little look at Christ on the cross. Although most, of course, it seems to be about men who've drowned at sea, who've died in the wrecks. But did you see the flower coming back there and something hammering through the daisies? That's the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, and that sense of people having died, and yet that wonderful image, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. There's a kind of cosmic resurrection. But the best thing, of course, is that absolutely epigrammatic line, which kind of answers the kind of dumb grief at mortality in the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, and was particularly a lament for love, where the iconic line here is saying, though lovers be lost, love shall not. There's something loving in us that survives. And you believe in the force and power of what he's saying in And Death Shall Have No Dominion, because you've read The Force That Through the Green Fuse Drives the Flower, which I think was actually one of his very first. I think it was published before he had a volume of poems published. It was published in a magazine in 1933 or something like that. 2 astonishing poems. And I kind of randomly picked the book up off the shelf because it was there, and I hadn't looked at it for ages. And it's a kind of lovely thing, both of its time in its lovely presentation, and of course the poetry for all time. Anyway, thanks for making your way up the stairs. Good to see you again.